All right, here's our third video for the week. I'm posting this on Sunday morning. This one I didn't take from the book. This is mine, one I made up, and like I warned you all early, I use a lot of sports programs. This is a class called Player. Right in this class, it's going to hold. It's just going to hold a few things. It's going to hold an int at bats, an int hits, and their batting average. And a batting average for you non-sports people is just hits divided by bats turned into a decimal that not almost, it always goes out 3 digits past the decimal, right? Here is my class definition, all right? It's under the header file. In the last video, I showed you all where to put these files. So you can see over here, over on the right, the header file, player.h. Okay, this is my class definition right here. This pragma once pops up with our ID, and I just go ahead and use it. I've never had any problem whether it's there or not, but I go ahead and leave it. Once you define a class, pragma once pops up, or a header file, pragma once pops up. In the header files, like I mentioned before, the wrappers, and I think I heard somebody call it that once. It's not mine, but I haven't heard it since. But you've got the if and def player H, pound define player H up at the top, and down at the bottom you got pound end if. You always need that in your header file when you're making these class definitions. And I almost always have to look it up myself. I always forget which is where. So you might want to make you a brief note, just these 3 lines, if end if, pound defined, and pound end if. All right, my player class. Private, I've got at-bats, hits, and batting average. Public, I've got all my prototypes for my member functions. Last time I did some inline programming. This time I didn't, except for one. And I will go in down and talk to that. This is the Destructor. All right, the program that we put together last Monday night didn't have a constructor and a destructor that you could see, but it did have one. All right, it kind of goes on behind the scenes. This week you're going to see all of our constructors, all right, and you're going to see our destructor. The destructor destroys the objects after they're made, right? So if I didn't put this one here, this little tilde and player, this destructor, if I didn't put it in this program, it would still happen. Same way with if I could run this program without any constructors. This one I'm running a few constructors where I send arguments to. But last week when you wrote that class program, I forget what it was, but there was a constructor and there was a destructor. All right. This one you're going to be able to see as it works. I put, while it's destroying, it's going to say destructor is working. So let's go back and talk about this. Public, I've got 3 constructors. Player, which is the default constructor. I'm not sending it any arguments. So if I call player as a constructor with no arguments, it'll know to run this one. I'm also going to send player, have a player constructor where I send it 1 argument, and I'm going to send it the at-bats. So it's going to fill in at bats, and it's not going to have any, it's going to initialize at bats, but the hits will still be 0. And then I'm going to send it, or I've got a third constructor where I send it both hits and at bats. All right. The rest is things are things you've seen before. I've got 2 setters, 2 getters. All right. Getters, just another reminder for the future test question. Getters are accessors and setters are mutators. All right. So there's my class. The only thing really new that you haven't seen before is this destructor. And like I said, I don't have anything special in this destructor for now. All right, under resource files, I'm going to go to player.cpp. All right, and these are my member functions. All right, I'm going to walk through them real quick. The player, the default, this first one, player with no argument sent to it, is the default constructor. And I could have easily added at bats equals zeros and hits equals 0, which some people do, but really, why bother? I mean, it's going to have the same effect. You're going to have to add the hits and add the at bats to it. So there really is no reason to do it. So that's my default constructor. Um, it has the same effect as the program you did on Monday night. It's still there, but it really doesn't do anything. All right. Except make an object. I'm sorry, it makes an object, but it really doesn't. Inside the object doesn't do anything. All right. The next one, a player, it's going to make an object. It's going to, I'm going to send it one int, and it's going to assign it bats. So it's going to have it bats equals a number, and the hits aren't assigned a value. Third one is I send 2 integers to, and it goes ahead and assigns value to at bats and hits. So when you run the program will automatically know by what you send it. If you send it nothing, it's going to use the first one. If you send it 1 integer, it's going to use the second one. If you send it 2 integers, it could use it's going to use the third one. And I mean, I've never seen over 3 constructors, but it's unlimited. If you also had inside the class, you had strings and doubles, you could have 5 or 6 constructors. That way, when you just have to make your arguments unique. This is unique. This one I've got highlighted here, and unique in the fact that I'm sending it 2 ints. This is unique in the fact that I'm sending it 1 int. The default constructor is unique in the fact it is not sent an argument. All right. And then we've got void player, set at bats. All right. One of the things I noticed last Monday night when you were writing your programs, you always would forget the player part, and I do too. Okay, it's just something that happens when you sit down and write these, and you'll run it, and you always have to go back and add your class to it also. 2 setters, set at bats, set hits. There's my getters with constants. Don't forget the constant, and don't forget that it has to match back in your class. And let's see, my final getter is get batting average. Now this is where a little something different takes on, because you know that the at bats and hits are ints, because you don't have half an at bat or half a hit. All right, they're ints. You have to convert them into doubles. All right, so get hits. All right, I assign to a double base hits, and then get at bats I assign to a double total at bats. All right, now they're doubles. Now I can divide them, and I can get the double that I need, and that's what this whole function returns. Get batting average returns a double. So there's all my getters, my setters, my 3 constructors. My default constructor is not here because you remember that was the one thing I did in line back in my class. All right, one more file, and it's under source files. That's the main.cpp, the driver of the program. Oh, one thing I have to go back and mention. In both player.cpp and main.cpp, you have to include player.h. All right, you have to include the header file. So look up at the top of my player.cpp, and what's right up at top of my main.cpp is include player.h. You put it inside of double quotations, and it'll include the header file. Just like you include iostream or iomanip, it knows it needs this header file to run this program. All right, my main's pretty simple. I make three objects. My first object I'm gonna make a player object, Vado. Right? If you remember, this is the default constructor. I send it no arguments. So I have to use my setters. I'm going to set it bats and set hits. Then I'm going to see out Joey Votto has a set precision, all the things I need to get that 0.300 thing going on. And, I told you it was 3 digits past the decimal. Then I run the batting average, which I've taken these ints, turned them into doubles back in that function, remember? And now I'm going to print it out. Votto get batting average, lifetime average, Endel. So in this one, I use the constructor where I don't send it any arguments. Since it doesn't have arguments, I have to use my setters. Right. Second constructor, I've got one argument. I send it at bats. So after I call player Cabrera, okay, that's my player Cabrera. That's my constructor. All right. I'm going to send it the value of 10,022. So set hits is already, hits is already set. So, but it doesn't have, I'm sorry, at bats is already set. All right. Then I have to use my setter because there's no hits in it. There's just at bats. All right. So I use set hits. Now both of them are filled, the at bats and hits. And then I can call on my other function, getting batting average. All right. Same thing. There's my set precision fixed. And my third constructor. That's the one where I send two arguments to. Right? I'm sending it two arguments. I'm sending it player, pool holes, at bats. You got to get the right order right. Remember that this one's going to be used as the first one. This is going to be used as at bats, and this one's going to be used as hits. And it's going to print out the same thing as the Votto and Cabrera. All right, I'm going to run this. All right, there's my three lines. All right, Joey Votto has a 297 lifetime batting average. Miguel Cabrera has a 308, and Albert Pujols has a 296. Here's the thing. I put this line inside the destructor. You can see the destructor working. The destructor is I don't know if it does it top down or bottom up, but it's doing one of these three. I think it's going to be in reverse order. I'm not sure. It really doesn't matter. This won't be a test question or anything. It's deleting Albert Pujols, except it's not really deleting. They call it destroying because it is a destructor. Okay, and then it's going to destroy Miguel Cabrera. Then it's going to destroy Joey Votto. I'm pretty sure it's in reverse order, but it doesn't really matter. All right. If I didn't put a destructor in there where you could see, let's go back to that real quick. This is really the main point of this video is the constructors and destructors. If I didn't even have this, all right, it would still, the program has a default constructor and destructor, right? So the Joey Votto one, when I didn't send arguments, I could get rid of all three of these, and I could get rid of the destructor, and the Joey Votto, or the one with no arguments, would still work in this program. All right. So you have to keep track of what you need and what you'd like to use as a destructor. Most programmers like this because it's quick. It's less code. When you make an object, and this is making a player object, go ahead and send it all the info in one thing. Then you can actually manipulate it. One more thing I gotta say about this, the destructor. Right, this works fine for with this kind of memory. If you have dynamically allocated things like pointers, you have to go in and put. It looks something like this. This will be a future video, but it'll be like delete. Like if you're doing arrays, It'll look something like that. All right. So for the programming that we're doing right now, just having a destructor on there is all you need to do. But when we start dealing with dynamically allocated memory, you actually have to go in and program and tell it what to do. What you want um, destroyed, deleted, whatever you want to call it. All right. Strongly suggest, besides just watching these videos, that you make some notes. These these wrappers are important. You don't want to go back and sort through the video to find these. All right. You need to definitely, I think you all understand getters and setters. You all have to understand how to call and use the constructors and understand the concept of the destructor. All right. Guys, have a good Sunday, and I will see you tomorrow night. If there's another video, it'll be a very short one. But please check these on Monday while you're at school or in between school and work in case there's one more video. Right? If I post, I will not post a video on Monday. It will be posted today on Sunday. So have a good weekend. I'll see you all later.